What if your doctor asked you to fast for a while? Would you do it? Because the reason may have less to do with food and more to do with what your body becomes without it. At first, fasting sounds simple. You stop eating, hours pass, you get hungry, maybe irritated, maybe tired, maybe proud of yourself, maybe annoyed that you ever agreed to this in the first place. But inside the body, something more interesting is happening. Not magic, not detox fantasy, not some secret ancient code that modern medicine forgot. Something quieter than that. Your body is changing its relationship with energy, and that matters because most of us live as if energy should arrive constantly. Breakfast, coffee, snack, lunch, another coffee, something sweet, dinner, something late at night, not because we are starving, but because the day feels unfinished without it. The modern body rarely has to ask, what do I do when nothing is coming in? So when food disappears for a while, the first shock is not just biological, it is psychological. A strange silence opens, and many people do not like what they hear in it. Think about an ordinary morning. You wake up, check your phone, brush your teeth, and somewhere in the background there is already an expectation. Food is coming, coffee is coming, some kind of reward is coming. Then remove it. No breakfast, no snack, no little bite while standing near the kitchen. No quick fix to change the mood. Suddenly, the body starts sending messages you usually answer immediately. A small pull in the stomach, a dip in patience, a sharp little thought, I need something. But the interesting part is that hunger is not always a straight line. It does not always climb like a fire until you collapse. Often it comes in waves. A wave arrives, gets loud, becomes convincing, and then, if you do not immediately obey it, sometimes it passes. That moment is strange. Because you realize that not every signal is an emergency. It may be real, it may deserve respect, but it is not always a command. This is one reason fasting has followed human beings for so long. Long before it became an app, a diet trend, or a biohacking routine, fasting appeared inside religious rituals, spiritual discipline, mourning, purification, prayer, preparation, and self-control. Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism, Jainism, and other traditions all found different meanings in the voluntary pause from food. They did not have modern metabolic charts. They did not talk about insulin curves or ketone bodies. But they noticed something. When you interrupt appetite, you interrupt more than eating. You interrupt habit. You interrupt noise. You interrupt the small automatic deal between discomfort and relief. Our nomadic ancestors also knew another version of this, though not by choice. Food was not always waiting. There were hunts that failed, seasons that changed, distances to cross, animals to follow, plants to find. The human body did not evolve in a world where every urge could be solved in 5 minutes. It evolved with gaps, and those gaps shaped us. When you eat, especially carbohydrates, your body gets glucose. Some of that glucose is used quickly. Some is stored as glycogen, mainly in the liver and muscles. Insulin helps move energy into storage and use. This is normal, essential, and not the villain. But when you stop eating for a while, the system slowly changes. The body starts drawing from stored glycogen. As those stores become lower, it leans more into fat as fuel. The liver can begin producing ketones, molecules that can be used as an alternative energy source, including by the brain. Researchers sometimes call this metabolic switching. And the phrase sounds technical, but the experience can feel deeply personal, because a switch in fuel can become a switch in mood, attention, and perception. Not for everyone, not every time, not in a perfectly predictable way. But many people recognize the pattern. The beginning is rough, then something changes. The hunger that felt like a wall becomes more like weather. The mind may feel cleaner. The body may feel lighter. Some people feel calm, some feel alert, some feel oddly powerful, not because they defeated the body, but because the body stopped screaming in the same language. Here's where fasting becomes more interesting than weight loss. If the only point were calories, the story would be simple. Eat less, lose weight, end of episode. And scientifically, this is an important caution. A lot of the benefits seen in intermittent fasting can overlap with the benefits of reducing total calories. Better weight control, improved insulin sensitivity, changes in blood lipids, lower blood pressure in some groups. These may happen, especially in people with overweight or metabolic issues. But fasting is not automatically superior to every other way of eating less. That is the boring argument. The deeper question is different. Why does the same body feel like a different self when the feeding pattern changes? Because we do not experience biology as biology. We experience it as mood, desire, clarity, impatience, confidence, anxiety, focus, weakness, strength, even meaning. A hormone shift does not arrive with a label. It arrives as, I hate this, or I need coffee, or I cannot think, or later, why do I feel so clear? This is the invisible part. Your body changes state, and your identity tries to explain it after the fact. Maybe you have noticed this in smaller ways. You skip a meal and suddenly everyone is annoying. You eat something heavy and the afternoon collapses. You drink coffee and mistake stimulation for purpose. You crave sugar and call it stress. You feel empty and call it loneliness. Food is not just fuel in human life. It is comfort, schedule, culture, reward, memory, love, rebellion, boredom, celebration, control. That is why fasting can feel so intimate. You are not only refusing calories, you are refusing one of the fastest ways humans change how it feels to be alive. And this is also where the subject can become dangerous if it is treated too carelessly. Because the same practice that gives one person clarity can become obsession for another. The same pause that helps one body can harm a body that is pregnant, underweight, diabetic, recovering from an eating disorder, or using medications where food timing matters. Fasting is not a personality test. It is not proof of discipline. It is not a moral upgrade. The body is not a machine you can insult into wisdom. It has limits. And yet, the fact that fasting is not for everyone does not make it less fascinating. It makes it more human, because almost every powerful tool sits near a boundary. Now watch the reversal. It is easy to think of fasting as something you do against temptation. You become the strong one. Food becomes the enemy. Desire becomes the thing to defeat. But in real life, we often participate in the same system we claim to be escaping. You decide not to eat for a few hours, and suddenly someone says, "Come on, just have one." Or, "That cannot be healthy." Or, "You are making this weird." Maybe they are worried. Maybe they are uncomfortable. Maybe your restraint makes them feel judged, even if you never judged them. But then in another situation, you become that person. Someone else changes their pattern, and you feel the shift. They stop drinking, they stop eating late, they stop using food as the social glue, and without meaning to, you want them back inside the old rhythm, because the old rhythm made the relationship easier. So you make a joke, you offer something, you call it concern, and maybe it is concern, but maybe it is also discomfort with someone else stepping outside the shared trance. This is why fasting is not just biological, it becomes social very quickly. Eating together says, "I am with you." Refusing food can accidentally say, "I am separate," even when that is not what you mean. For thousands of years, cultures understood this. Fasting was rarely just private. It was often communal, ritualized, protected by meaning. The group created a container around the discomfort. Without that container, fasting can become lonely, performative, or misunderstood. And then there is the word everyone loves to throw around, autophagy. Autophagy is real. Cells can break down and recycle damaged components, especially under stress or nutrient scarcity. It is one of the body's maintenance processes, but online culture often turns it into a glowing internal car wash, as if skipping lunch guarantees cellular rebirth. The reality is more careful. Autophagy is complex. It varies by tissue, timing, context, and health status. It is not easy to measure directly in humans, and more is not automatically better. Biology is not a motivational poster. It is a negotiation. Still, the idea points to something beautiful. When nothing new comes in, the body may begin paying attention to what is already there. At the cellular level, that can mean recycling. At the psychological level, it can mean noticing. You notice how much of your day is arranged around small escapes. You notice how often appetite is tangled with boredom. You notice that the first feeling is not always the final truth. That may be the most powerful part of fasting. Not the weight, not the trend, not the discipline story. The pause. For a while, the usual answer is unavailable. And when the usual answer is unavailable, the question becomes clearer. Am I hungry or am I restless? Am I weak or am I changing fuel? Do I need food right now? Or do I need comfort, stimulation, sleep, attention, a break, a life that does not require constant soothing? Fasting cannot answer all of that for you, but it can make the question harder to ignore. And maybe this is why the doctor in the beginning matters. Because when a doctor asks you to fast, the request feels legitimate. There is a reason, a boundary, a test, a procedure, a purpose. You accept discomfort because it belongs to a larger frame. But outside that office, we often lose the frame. We treat every empty feeling like a problem to erase. We fill the stomach, the schedule, the silence, the room, the screen, the mind. And sometimes the body never gets to show us its other modes. So fasting, at its best, is not a war against food. Food is not the enemy. Hunger is not a flaw. Appetite is not weakness. The more interesting possibility is that the human body was built for rhythm, intake and pause, fullness and emptiness, storage and release, signal and silence. Maybe the strange feeling after the difficult beginning is not supernatural at all. Maybe it is simply the body remembering an older flexibility. And maybe the real question is not whether fasting is good or bad in some absolute way. The real question is what kind of person you become when the first impulse does not immediately get answered. Because inside that small delay, something opens, not a miracle, a space. And sometimes, a space is enough to reveal how much of your life has been running on automatic. Lucid Order. Question everything.